Hi all, and welcome back to the Nothing Notable podcast. Today we're going to do a first of a series of podcasts for director Bong Joon-Ho. Today we're going to be talking about the 2006 South Korean film, The Host. It's a great little movie. It's a great little creature feature. And I really like this movie. I don't think it's like a fantastic, like 10 out of 10 movie, but I think it's a perfectly fun creature feature that has like a lot of seeds of how great Bong Joon-Ho is going to become in the next decade with films like Snowpiercer and Parasite. He's one of my favorite foreign directors, definitely, and just directors in general. And I think this just does a really good job. There's a lot of simple stuff that this does that really propels the story forward and makes you care about the characters. And, also there's some nice frosted tips in it.
Hell yeah.
Is all I gotta say. But it's a lot of fun, and it's kind of a classic creature feature is what I keep saying, but it is really the definition of that, a movie with a monster in it. But yeah, Dan or Jack, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I had never seen this one before I watched it yesterday. A lot of people, I think, don't like foreign films because they don't like subtitles, which for me personally, I enjoy films that have subtitles on them because it forces me to focus more on what is going on, because you can't get distracted and look at your phone or something, because then you're going to miss out what's going on. But it was really good. I thought the performances from everybody in the whole cast were excellent. I give it a solid 8.5 out of 10.
The fact that Parasite wins Best Picture at the Oscars, the fact that he wins Best Director, it wins Screenplay, it gets all of these awards. All of that is made possible because of this film, because this is the film that really puts him on the map. This became an international smash hit. Like you said, Tyler, it put him on the map and shows you the seeds of where he's going to go. Where to start with this movie? It's obviously, it's an incredible performance by Song Kang-ho, and it's an incredible piece of directing by Bong Joon-Ho. But I think where I want to start with is just the idea of the creature feature, because I was doing a little bit of research about some of the best creature features that have kind of come out in this 21st century that we're living in. And the term creature feature is kind of broad. It can extend to like just about any monster movie. But if you think about it as like giant monster movies, there's only really two movies that are substantial, like two original movies that are substantial in the 21st century. It's Cloverfield and it's The Host. So in that regard, this movie stands, with only one other. It's so remarkably by itself. It's in a whole nother league. And
may I say, similar to Kong and Godzilla before, I think the Cloverfield monster and the Host monster should fight each other.
Yeah.
In a movie.
Yeah.
I would not want that at all, but that would be kind of funny.
So there's some stuff that I just want to get out of the way first for anyone that's listening, because in doing my research, I found that there wasn't actually that many reviews of The Host on YouTube or online just in general, which I found disappointing. It would be just good for the audience to know going in. $11 million budget, which if you're not into film, if you don't know about budgeting for film, that's not very much money at all, especially because they had originally 160 creature shots and they had to pare it down to about 110. And so on the $11 million budget, I think about $5 million was spent on just the VFX, which is like nothing. But when you know that it's made for $11 million, it kind of makes it even more endearing and even more impressive that they were able to accomplish all of that with such a small budget.
Yeah, there was nothing like egregious about the CGI. Like sometimes you watch movies and you're like, oh my goodness, this looks like they cut and paste something and just like it's moving across the frame now. But like, no, I thought the monster looked, like what I would expect it to look like for 2006. Like it's tough to judge like visual effects from 2006 against what we have now, but like I thought it looked pretty good. I thought that monster was pretty creepy. If I was walking on the pier and I saw that thing, I'd be scared.
Yeah, and I think the film does a really good job of like hiding it when it needs to be. Like when the tentacle holds the little girl up.
Yeah.
I always think of that image. It's like one, terrifying that you can't see the monster really on the other side, but like also it's kind of like an easy way to hide the monster in some sort of ways. I mean, like obviously like the classic the classic monster that was hidden for most of the film is like a movie like Jaws, where like they couldn't get the shark to fucking work, so like they just hid him the most of the movie. And like I think just in general in creature features and monster movies, like it really works the best when your mind is kind of like doing like the hard work. And like I think in The Host it does that a lot, especially when it's raining. When it's raining, the monster's even scarier, and like how it like jumps on the like bridge and stuff is just
the way it swings from that shit. It's like a goddamn monkey fish.
Yeah, it's like a monkey octopus fish looking motherfucker thing. But yeah, and yeah, just in general, I think the monster is a lot of fun. And that first sequence is just fantastic with it.
Yeah, before we move on to the first scene, which is like just stunning. Couple more things I just want to throw out there. I just couldn't not mention this because I think this is so awesome. I'm going to read it verbatim. As of March 2009, this was the highest grossing film to date in South Korea. It sold over 13 million tickets. That means that over 20% of the South Korean population watched this movie. The film was such a cultural phenomenon that there's a statue of the film's creature that was erected on the actual Han River. So
that's incredible.
Isn't
that is so cool?
20% of the population of the country, and they erected a statue of the monster on the actual Han River. That's amazing. The cultural impact that it had on the country. It's such a huge, massive hit.
I mean, it is a cultural phenomenon, and it also like probably, I haven't looked this up, but I can assume, and it's been on my mind because they're making a remake of it, and it's so dumb. But Train to Busan probably took a lot of inspiration from this too. Since we're talking about the creature, let's talk about we'll talk about like the story beats and like the family like pretty soon, but like let's talk about the creature since we're on it right now. I love the opening sequence. I think it has a little bit of everything. I think it's a perfect location. Like the one shot that sticks out in my mind is when Song Kang-ho is like running like next to it, like on the steps and stuff. And like, it really reminded me of like from where we're from, there's like that nice part by the bay in San Francisco where you can just walk and there's steps and stuff.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But yeah, just like it touches on something that's so like dear to people who live close to the water, you know? Like it's just like horrifying image of this like monster running next to him. And I think it builds tension like really well. And like, when he grabs the wrong fucking hand, it's so good. And then just to see like he just sees his daughter like getting like pulled away, it's like horrifying, you know. And seeing her like sink into the water is like, whew. But a great opening scene, definitely for the monster at least.
I love like when it takes place too during the film, because I think a lot of times you get films where they will kind of like stretch out the beginning and make you wait till like 30-40 minutes in until you're like, here's the monster. This one, I think because I noticed how early it was. I think it was like 13 minutes in and we're like already getting some action. We're getting the monster here, which as someone who has a short attention span, I appreciated that because like we got it going right away and I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I that was something that struck me the first time I watched it, and then when I rewatched it last night as well. Yeah, it happens just like in a flash. And what's incredible is it's not sacrificing any character beats or story beats in order to accomplish that. You're learning everything you need to know about the main character. Song Kang-ho's character in this movie is introduced so efficiently and quickly. He takes he takes one of the tentacles of the squid off and eats it for himself. Like he's kind of this lazy, well, also just the very first shot of him, he's asleep at the counter and he's got like narcolepsy, which is just a really funny character trait. When his daughter first comes up to see him, he trips when he's going over to see her. Like everything about him is like bumbling and sort of pathetic, but also really endearing. He offers his daughter a beer when they're watching his sister on the archery tournament. And just like everything about him is like really sad, but also so endearing to the point where like you can't not root for this guy. And so then as soon as the monster does show up, which also that shot, just the way that was shot when he first sees the monster is so stunning. But as soon as the monster shows up, you're like, oh, I'm on this guy's team. We got to get out of here. Like, I hope everything goes okay for this guy because he's really a bumbling idiot for the majority of the movie.
Yeah, and they're just throwing shit at that monster in the water.
Hilarious.
And then it swims away and they're like, oh, where'd it go? And then like, he sees it to the side and then the next guy turns around and then it's here, mother huggers.
And it's during the daytime also, which is so fascinating.
Yeah.
Because as much, Tyler, as you were mentioning, like they do a good job of picking and choosing when to show the monster. It's a pretty bold choice to introduce the monster in daylight and in this long tracking shot where you get to see the whole beast in motion. Like I think that is Bong Joon-Ho just being like, cards on the table. Here's what this movie is. Like, it's a giant monster movie. They didn't obscure Godzilla in the original Godzilla movies that much. They didn't really obscure King Kong. Like, we're showing you the monster, and here it is. And hopefully you're on board.
Yeah, and you get some like good like close calls, some kills in the opening, like when the monster like goes into that trailer or whatever, and it's just shaking, and you just see blood coming out, like so fun. And then we were talking about this off mic, but like there's that typical American hero who's trying to just kill the monster right away. Like
let's take this pole and hit it.
Like we know. Yeah, we know nothing about this monster, and this American guy's just like, let's fucking kill it, like with this giant pole. Like, help me out, bro. He's like,
but also in the dialogue of that, like the way that the American character is like, we have to go help. Like, we have an obligation to go help these people. It just kind of also speaks to the political nature of the movie, also.
Exactly, and like again, like it is sort of endearing. In some ways, to see this foreign man in this foreign country trying to help as much as he can, but also it's kind of like you're trying to steer the ship too much, and that's definitely something the United States does, and that's definitely something that Bong Joon-Ho is trying to play against, definitely.
And I think if we backtrack for a second, the most obvious example of this is the very opening scene with Scott Wilson of Walking Dead fame, of course. We're all big former Walking Dead fans. It's almost like we were in a cult and like we've gone clear
a
now.
Little bit. You escaped. We escaped.
I still watch.
So do I.
I still watch, so I'm kind of.
Yeah, I don't.
Jack
I fully made it out. You guys still you agree with it in principle, but you just don't like the way they're going about it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's almost over.
Very soon. But yeah, Herschel from The Walking Dead, and he's been in a million other things. But he gets to play this obnoxious American at this U.S. military base in South Korea, and orders a South Korean man to dump a bunch of formaldehyde into the Han River. Basically, I think it's silly that he would be like, we have to toss this because of dust. Like, that's obviously silly. But if you just think of the scene not as like a logical scene within a movie, but more so as just an analogy for what the movie is about to be, just as like a thing to get your taste buds sort of working, then it works a lot better. Because the first time I watched it, I was like, that's silly. Like, this is a silly reason for the stuff to go into the Han River. But after rewatching it, I'm like, this is just an analogy. This is just an analogy, and that's all that it has to serve the purpose of. What were your impressions of the opening scene?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of like a microcosm of the entire movie in some ways. Like, it's a beat that needs to be hit. And there's a lot of beats in this movie. Like, we'll talk about it when we get into all the characters, but like, when all the characters are like dying off, and I put that in quotations because like, obviously they come back at the end and like save the day, blah, blah, blah. But like, it's all these like beats that like have to be hit because like this, I don't think this movie is trying to like subtly do anything. It's doing it in like a very like in your face kind of way. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. It's just like, it's just a filmmaker / screenwriter finding his footing, and like you do have to hit the beats. And like, I think this film does that very well. And I think the opening scene definitely does that really well.
Yeah. My first impressions were, oh my God, that's a lot of formaldehyde to go down the drain. Just watching them like pan and you just see the bottles and bottles and bottles. But yeah, I thought it was a very like you said, a little goofy, a little bit of a silly reason to pour it down. but like makes the analogy point very clearly and sets the stage for the film.
And I guess moving forward, also, I think this film is scary to today.
Yes.
And it's like, so like, I watched it for the first time like 4 months ago. And like, I was like, oh my God, like when they like quarantine the area after the monster attacks in the initial scene. And like, it is horrifying because it's like kind of what we've been living through in the last like year or so. And like, it's just people wearing masks, like people being like super cautious and being like, have you been in contact with that animal, that creature? Like, cause we don't know what's up. And there's also just like a certain, like when they all get into that little area, they reunite and then they're all fighting each other because the daughter is supposedly dead. That's just so heart-wrenching. And then they take it out of you too when the government's like, actually everyone has to stay here because we have to quarantine and we don't know who is infected and stuff. And it's also kind of funny because this, in a different universe, this also becomes a monster movie, or a zombie movie, I should say, where everyone just turns into zombies and stuff. But
they all turn into giant like tadpole monsters.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Little tails and.
Well, don't give people ideas out there, Dan.
You're right. The host too. No, but speaking of that, also like the scene that really like struck me now because of COVID was it's just like a little cutaway scene where there's just people waiting for a bus like on the side of the street, and one guy's like coughing. He takes off his mask, and everyone's like, "Oh!" And then the car drives by and splashes them all with water, and they all scream. That was so funny.
And correct me if I'm wrong. I think he coughs, he spits into the
that's right.
into this like the sewer, and then the water splashes, and everyone's so gross. And especially now, you're like, oh no, that's really disgusting.
Let's talk a little bit. I think we should do the song Kang-ho conversation now.
Yeah.
I just think that well, I mean, we'll keep talking about like Bong Joon-Ho and everybody, but the thing that I come out of this movie thinking more so than anything else is like, I came out of this movie and I'm like, Song Kang-ho is the best actor on the planet. He is right now my number one favorite actor in the world. This dude is just unbelievable in everything, and he gives such a different performance in every single movie that he's in. When you guys first watched this movie, or Tyler, I don't know which movie you watched first of his, but like the first time you see him in a movie, like what is your immediate impression? Because I was just stunned.
Yeah, I saw him in Snowpiercer first. I went to the Rafael in 2014, and I watched Snowpiercer. And again, I didn't know really anything about it. I just knew Chris Evans was in it. But I came out of that being like, Song Kang-ho in that movie kind of plays kind of like a bad boy of the train in some sort of ways. Like it's a pretty interesting part for him, especially now knowing more so like with the type of actor he is after like Parasite. He's so good in Parasite. I think he should have been nominated for an Oscar for that movie.
Should have won it.
Yeah, but I digress. In Snowpiercer is the first time I saw him, and like it was just really interesting because he's playing like against type, I guess, in that movie, because like he's just sort of like a bad boy. I would kind of compare him to like a Han Solo type. He's kind of like a wild card in it, and like it's been a while since I've seen it, but I just remember being like, who is that guy? Because he's someone I don't recognize, and he's just like, he steals every scene he's in. He has like a really interesting arc in it, and he's just fantastic. And like again, I think Scorsese and Leo are like a good comp for them, except I think Song Kang-ho is a better actor than Leo personally, just because I don't even speak the same language as him, but like just seeing his versatility in I think the 3 or so movies I've seen of his is really good. And he plays, it's really fun to see him in this movie because he's a lot younger than I typically see him. And again, he's kind of playing this like schlubby 30, 40-year-old who's just trying to get by. And again, it's just something about him. He has such like a welcoming presence, even if he's playing like a smelly character, like in Parasite, you know. But he's just great, and I do like him a lot, and we should put him in a Fargo season.
Yeah, I have not seen anything else of his, but just with this one character, he was able to do so much and had so much versatility in it, just in all the different scenes. I think about the in the beginning when he's with his daughter and they're drinking beer and watching the sister in the archery, and then later with him, mourning her death, or him, taking that one nurse hostage and storming out of the place with the needle to her neck. He was just able to do so much in just this one film with this one character. Truly an incredible performance.
He's like I said, he's my favorite actor in the world right now. And in watching interviews, like especially after Parasite, Bong Joon-Ho feels the exact same way. He always introduces him as the world's greatest actor when they're doing like things
so
together. When they won the Palme d'Or, he immediately got on his knee and presented it to Song Kang-ho, sort of to say like, this is, I technically am the director of this, but also like you are so important for winning this award. I have a number of quotes that I kind of want to just like jump into, because I just think hearing other people talk about him is kind of illustrative of how I also already was feeling, but couldn't put words to. So I have a couple of quotes from Bong Joon-ho first. He said, "He's like a canvas that grows and grows. No matter how many brush strokes I apply, there's always more space to paint. To me, he's like an inexhaustible diamond mine. Whether I've done 4 movies with him or 40, I still know that I will unearth a new character." That is a beautifully articulated way of describing how I felt. I feel like the way he says like an inexhaustible diamond mine, that's spot on. Like that's exactly how I felt the first time I saw him.
That's the type of relationship you want to see in like a duo like this, like a director-actor duo, because I mean, like it's kind of like with Lynch and Kyle MacLachlan. It's like they can just say whatever and like they'll understand it, because like they just have like another language that they speak with each other. And it's not just Korean. Stupid.
Now, I forgot to mention, but so these quotes that I'm rattling off are from the a New York Times piece. It was the 25 best actors of the 21st century. Where do you think he ranked? Just like if throw out a random number, where do you think that the New York Times put him as best actors of the 21st century?
4.
7.
6. Right there you go.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Not too shabby.
And so as a part of that, they asked Bong Joon-ho to write this stuff. So he continued to say, he continued to describe exactly what it is about him that works so well. He said, "His uniqueness as a protagonist comes from his ordinariness, his mundaneness, especially to the Korean audience. Song projects the quality of the typical Korean working man, a neighbor or a friend that you might encounter in your neighborhood. So they're even more engrossed when they see this seemingly everyday character confronted by a monster or a monstrous situation in movies like The Host or in Parasite. And he starts from the ordinary and elevates it into a singular, inimitable voice. And I believe that's what makes Song Kang-ho and the characters he inhabits genuinely special." And I think that's the thing that sticks out to me specifically about The Host, is he is so ordinary in his sort of blubberingly tragic nature, like he's really an endearing guy who's trying to do the best for his daughter and he's trying to do the best for his family, but he just kind of isn't the brightest. He has like his own little deficiencies. And personally, after having watched Malcolm and Marie the other day, something I realized about myself and about the movies that I try to write and the characters that I find myself liking more in other people's movies, I don't like super articulate artists characters. What I do like is characters that are well-intentioned but kind of dumb, because I personally just identify with that. I feel like I am that guy, and that's why I love him so much in this movie, is because he's just kind of aloof. He's kind of a little bit dim. I think about when they get into the van, the little fumigation van that they get, they're watching themselves on the news. And Song Kang-ho is like, "We should record this and show it to my daughter because they'll see that daddy's on the news." Like just little things like that. Like he's a really sweet guy. And then also when he's running behind the truck in the fumigation because he doesn't want to get his daughter contaminated when they find her.
Yeah.
Just stuff like that.
Yeah.
He's so endearing, but so dim. And it comes up to haunt him in a couple of big scenes that we'll talk about later. But it's his endearing quality, both as an actor and also just as the character, that really grounds this movie in sort of a familiarity and like a mundaneness, like as Bong Joon-ho said.
Yeah. And I really do hope Song Kang-ho can find more like I think he's found so much international success, but I definitely want him to get nominated for an Oscar or something one day. But like, I feel like Parasite is like the big movie, like is the biggest movie of his career. But I mean, if they make something better than Parasite together one day, like that'd be amazing. And he's about what? Bong Joon-Ho and him are around like 50 or something right now?
Yeah, I think Song Kang-ho is 53 and Bong is 51 or maybe vice versa. But yeah, but also just to that point, in my research, this is my last little fact about Song Kang-ho, who I just think is amazing. But I was reading an interview with him and he was talking about how he's been approached now after Parasite and after The Host and a couple of other movies that he's done. He's been approached by Hollywood studios to do some American mainstream films and he turns them down. He's decided that he thinks it's more important and more valuable to represent South Korean cinema than it is to represent American cinema. So he only makes South Korean films. Snowpiercer obviously is an English language film, but it's, from Bong Joon-Ho and it has, multiple Korean characters. So I thought that was a really respectable choice. So in terms of like whether he'll get nominated for an Oscar again, Parasite was probably his best chance because he's not going to be offered he's not going to accept any traditional American film roles. But God, I hope that Bong and him continue to work together for a long time because this collaboration is incredible.
I was really hoping to see him in Avengers Episode 10, The Rise of Star Wars, but alas. No, that's really sweet and actually makes him even more endearing as an individual. Love Song Kang-ho. So good.
Now, I've given a lot of love to Song Kang-ho, but the reason that we're doing this series of podcasts is obviously to just effusively praise one of our favorite directors, Bong Joon-ho. What is it that he's doing in this movie for you guys that makes it successful? Because we've seen a bunch of really mediocre creature features between the three of us. And what is it that he's doing that prevents this from falling flat? Is it in the writing? Is it in the staging? Is it in the cinematography? Like what exactly do you guys pinpoint as like the singular thing that makes this movie stand out?
I think for me, what it is it's not so much about the monster. It's more about the characters in it. Like, obviously the monster plays a big role, but the like real intrigue for me in watching it came from the story of the family and the like their relationships and how just what they wanted to achieve in trying to find the daughter. And it didn't even necessarily have to be that she was taken by this monster. It could have been she got like just lost in a park or something. But I feel like the same dynamics would have still been applied. And I think that's part of where a lot of, these creature features fall short is they focus so much on the monster that there's no like meat to back it up.
Definitely. I totally agree with that point, Jack. And kind of off that, I think it's the little things that help that help in this movie. Like I think about that one scene where they're just like eating food, like they just like, and they're about to get fucked over by the monster again, but there's just this nice pause where they're just eating food and it's like really sweet. And like they imagine the daughter's there and it's like super like, I kind of wish he just came back then and everyone's like, hey! Yeah. Like that's the end of the movie. Again, it's more about the people. It's more about even the monster is the main bad guy, but the monster is no more a bad guy than like coronavirus is in a way. It's like something that like we can't stop. And like the real trouble in this movie comes from like the United States coming in, like different government bodies trying to like stop people from like finding this little girl or finding the monster in general. And, which similar to The Walking Dead, it's like the people are the real enemy and not just the monsters.
Yeah, I definitely agree with both of you guys on that. I think specifically with that scene where they're just huddled around and they're eating, I find that in this movie and in Parasite, in both movies, again, like when the characters are eating together, there's like an authenticity to it and just like a naturalness to it that makes you buy in even more to this family. Like all of the characters, they feel like real siblings, especially when they're having that really emotional, but also kind of funny moment where they're all crying on the floor. And then Song Kang-ho's brother like does a floor kick on him.
Yeah, that was insane. That's insane.
That made me laugh so hard. But like that seems just like, you know, like I can imagine them as children, like roughhousing and stuff. Like that's the thing that I think Jack is, as you put it very well. The characters really draw you in and make you care so much, and they're all given arcs to go on. Very early on, the sister is like shown in the archery tournament, and she can't pull the trigger. She's too slow. And guess what? She comes in.
And then at the end,
nails it at the end.
She pulls the trigger.
Exactly, and the Molotov cocktails, and the brothers first introduced drinking a beer, and then Song Kang-ho's character also is just like a total coward and like totally aloof and a buffoon the whole movie, and he is able to prevent it from getting to the river. He comes in strong there. All of the characters, they have really good character arcs. They feel like a family. And
again, some things feel like a little like ham-fisted, like when the sister kind of just like dies for like 10 or 15 minutes, right. And same with the brother, and like same with basically all the characters, and like same with Song Kang-ho and like everyone else, and like there's just these beats that like feel kind of like, well, you know, it's gonna come back, but like something like, we'll talk about this when we talk about Parasite, but like something like Parasite is so perfect in every way, and it's so nice to see how that becomes refined over the course of one's career. And again, this is just planting the seeds, and it's still really good, which is the best part about it.
Yeah, I thoroughly too enjoyed the pacing of it all too. I find a lot of times movies just keep like going up the whole time, and it's just tension. But then in this one, there's nice moments like the scene we talked about where they're just eating around the table, where it gives you that nice little like break for a second, and then we're right back into it with more monster. I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I think that Bong Joon-Ho is like one of the greatest in the world right now at balancing those conflicting tones. The movie goes from like very scary moments to very, very funny moments, like just in a quick beat. That's why most of his movies are sort of described as dark comedies, is because they're dramas, but like they have very funny moments, and most dramas just don't have funny moments anymore. And so the way that he's able to weave those things together, that's like master craftsmanship, because we've seen, I mean, the famous example is George Lucas looking at the rough cut of Phantom Menace and saying, you know, I think we've gone a little far in some places, because he was trying to balance just too much. There's like slapstick comedy, and then there's like this incredible duel of the fates thing going on, and then there's young Anakin who's trying to blow up a ship. So you can have these conflicting.
Natalie Portman's doing something.
Exactly, they're they're propelling up a building. So you can have these conflicting elements, but if you don't have the mastery of craft to be able to sew them together, it's worthless, and your movie's going to fall apart. But he really knows how to connect those dots. And I think this is just one of the best scenes, the scene that we keep talking about, but when they're sitting around, well, I guess it's after they've eaten, because they're eating, and then we see more of the daughter in the sewer, and then it comes back, and we get that awesome monologue from the father, who's just incredible in this movie. I think again, sorry for maybe mispronouncing some names, but I believe it's Hee-Bong, who is just a terrific actor and is so good in this movie. But when he's giving this monologue, it's like very sweet, it's very thoughtful, and then all of a sudden Song Kang-ho just wakes up, and like he kind of just appears into the frame, and then he's like, the monster's outside, and then tension immediately comes back. It knocks them over, and again, a little bit of comedy, like the brother is like, ow, my head, just like silly slapstick dialogue. And then they get out, they shoot at it, and then it leads to what is like the coolest and most incredibly shot sequence, where the father ends up dying, and it becomes really sad again.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it perfectly encapsulates like the fallacy of a character too, who can't count correctly. Like, no, there's one more shot in there, and it's so sad when there's not, and then he just gets knocked away, and. Oh God. And that scene's in the rain, and it's just so well shot, and oh my God. Yeah.
And so much is being said too. I mean, first of all, just the cinematography is outstanding in this scene, because you see the camera the camera's pointed to his hands as he's counting, and then it pulls back up, and he has the moment of realization in his face, looks at his father. His father turns around, has the moment of realization in his face, and then kind of like waves him on. And like so much is being said in that little wave on. And then he gets just face planted into the ground and then just
he gets
bopped all over.
Smacked against the pavement.
Yeah, and the way that Song Kang-ho's character can't leave. Also, he starts to run away and then comes back, and just kind of how blubbering he is throughout the whole movie is awesome. But that sequence, man, like that's also one thing that's incredible about this movie is there are memorable sequences that stretch for like long periods of time. I think that the movie, like you said, Jack, is very well paced and very well. The tone is very well handled. It's 2 hours long, but it never feels like it's overstaying its welcome.
Oh.
You know, talking about how like familial this unit is, and just like how it just feels like a real family. I think the scene when they escape from the hospital for the first time is, again, speaking to the balancing of tone. It's like so funny. Even the music kind of gets like kind of wonky and silly, and like they have to escape, and he does this like basically Charlie Chaplin-esque bit where he like falls down with the nurse and throws her, and they get into the elevator, and then they get out and they get into the van, and they leave their sister behind, and then the father starts.
They're like, she's so fucking slow.
Yeah.
And they have to like the security guard's chasing them in the parking lot, and then they have to like go around again and pass him. It's such a funny sequence. And you're right. Like the music is goofy and stuff, but like if they get caught, they're screwed. You know, like the government's
gonna kill monster guys who are like accountants there, and they're adding up every little charge that he has.
And that's also, again, like there's just moments of like really endearing character. Like there are really endearing character moments like that one where the father gives away every last dime that he has, basically, and he just has a really sad expression. I think that's what it is. It's like Bong really knows when to hit a thing. He knows when to hit the comedy, and he knows when to hit the sincerity. And that's really tough to like navigate when you're trying to film something, because like George Lucas knows, it could go very, very wrong.
I mean, I think we'd all recommend this one, especially if you haven't seen it yet. I don't think we spoiled like too much, and we didn't spoil the ending at all. And it's just a really fun movie. It's a different movie if you only watch like Hollywood type productions. And you know, I think it's just like a step on like on a staircase of like one of, I think it's going to be one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, especially for South Korea. And Bong Joon-Ho is just incredible, and this is a very good I think opening to his filmography, especially because it's just fun, and it has heart, drama, comedy. You got it all. You got a big squid fish monster type thing. It's great.
No one really knows what that monster is. It's kind of ambiguous.
Yeah, I think like a bunch of sea creatures just kind of combined into one big one.
There's like a big fish that falls off it towards the end, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I was watching that, and I was like, huh? But then I stopped myself, and I was like, this is cool. Like this is way cooler than Godzilla at this point. Like, I don't want to see King Kong versus Godzilla. Like, who gives a shit?
We will be reviewing it, though.
We will be. I think just in my closing remarks, Jack, to your point earlier about subtitled movies, I think that this is like the perfect way to start if you're trying to get into foreign films for the first time. I think Bong Joon-ho is so precise as a technician that it's going to be hard for you to lose track, and it's so well written. I think it just transcends language, just at all. And so I think if you're getting into sort of foreign films, this is a great place to start, because like you said, Ty, it has everything you could ask for. And it's from just a master filmmaker. So I think that this is where you want to start.
Yeah. I guess I'll go now. Really just everything these knuckleheads said. You got a little bit of everything here. It's funny, and it's heartfelt, and there's drama in it, and there's a big ambiguous monster. Good stuff.
Especially with these creature features that are like foreign films, especially, it's like you're going to get everything you need to out of the visuals, because again, Bong Joon-ho is just a master at storytelling. So I guess that's it. This has been a throwback review of The Host 2006. Where'd you guys watch it recently?
On Hulu.
It is on Hulu. guys. So check it out now. A lot of great stuff on Hulu. I've been Tyler.
I've been Daniel.
And I've been Jack.
This has been the Nothing Notable podcast. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And tell us what you thought of the host if you've never heard of it or never seen it. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time.
Just you?
Yeah.
Well, you won't see anyone. It's a podcast.